Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be diving into Dakota a little bit more. We're going to start by hitting all our little dings and dents with 180 grit to knock it down so we can put on some bondo or putty into each area. From there we're going to be sanding into 180 on some of the more serious areas, as well as, for example, down here there's a little crack in the paint, so we're going to have to get to the bottom of why it is cracking. So we got some 180 grit, and we're just going to be sanding all our little ding areas. You don't want to go too far because you'll have to cover up these sand scratches. They will be too deep for paint. So we're just going far enough to put some bondo on here and then be able to have room to cover it up with primer. As you can see on this one, our little low spot, the dent sand. So we'll just be going around the truck, sanding all our little areas just like this. That way we have good adhesion for when we put the bondo or putty on. And the camera probably won't pick this up, but there's actually a little ripple in there from when they painted this panel before, and they had a run in it. So we're going to end up blocking that one out. We'll probably do that one with 180 as well, because we'll end up putting primer over it just to block it again and make sure it's extra smooth. So we sanded down this area on the back of the bed with 180 where there was a nice paint crack in it, and it turned out to be cracked bondo. But also, if you'll see down here, the paint was flaking off, and that's because there is a little bit of surface rust that got behind there. So we're gonna have to get all that out and probably coat it with some etch primer and start going from there, building it back up. Alright, so we have a few issues going on under here. It's turning into a little bit bigger project than I expected, but if you can see this right here, it looks like somebody bondoed over bare metal, and then when moisture gets behind it, it turns into rust, and then the bondo will fall off the panel. Alright, and then what we have over here is somebody painted over other paint without sanding it, so it's just kind of flaking off. You can see it's still glossy underneath. So the new paint, or I should say old paint, isn't sticking to the original paint. I think what I'm going to do, so I'm not here picking at this for days on end, I'm probably going to put a sanding disc on a grinder and just knock it down a little bit. And we'll probably go down to bare metal and start from scratch. Alright, so I got into sanding this a little bit, and I think we're going to change our game plan a little. Most of these little dings are actually in the top coat of paint. So hypothetically, I should be able to sand this paint, do a nice coat of primer, block it out, and all the little dings will be gone. We won't have to put any kind of bondo or filler in most of these. So I knocked this top up here down with 400. As you can see, this whole truck's pretty much been painted before, and this top layer is pretty soft, so it's been getting a lot of rock chips and things like that in it. But we will be doing a little etch primer on this to cover up the bare metal, and probably just blowing some primer back over this. It's pretty much ready to go there. So I think that's what we're gonna do. Just sanding the doors, sanding all the body panels, and just doing a nice coat of primer over the whole outside of the truck, blocking it out a couple times, and going to paint. Not worrying too much about body filler. Alright, so we've been doing some science experiments to see what we're working with here. We ended up using a flat disc on the grinder and taking about a 1/4 inch of bondo off here. Although it's kind of weird because it doesn't really need more than a skim coat here. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, so more science experiments. We decided to hit this door with the flap wheel to see what was underneath. And I don't know if you can see that, but the panel is fine. They just randomly put mud over it for some reason. Alright, so we got this knocked down with a sanding disc flap wheel on a grinder. As you can see, it was pretty thick, between 1/8 to 1/4 inch across this whole piece. And there's just a few little dings, like hail almost. But really, I think most of this we can probably just fill in with primer, and then come back and fill in a couple little low areas, and that'll be it. Alright, today we ended up knocking down this whole side with 180. Because we're going to prime this whole side a few times and do block sanding just to make sure we get it smooth, get all the little dings out. If you saw already, we took down all this bondo that was down here. It was about 1/4 inch thick. And it really didn't need to be that thick. They probably could have gotten away with a few tiny little skim coats in certain areas. It was kind of overkill what they did on it. So tomorrow we will be priming it, doing some block sanding on it, just to see what areas actually need filler in it, if any really, and going from there. We also got a few little dings in the tailgate fixed up. And there was a weird little chip here that we filled in. And then there was a run over here. And if you can see that, there's an area where clear was lifted off of it. So we'll be priming this one as well and blocking that out.